People who've died and come back carry a look you can recognize across a room. Something behind the eyes shifted. The worry that drives most human behavior, the constant calculation of what could go wrong, vanished from their operating system. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly what death taught them about creation and why you can access that same state without flatlining on a hospital table. There's a pattern in near-death experience accounts that researchers have documented for decades. The details vary. Tunnels of light, encounters with deceased relatives, life reviews that play out in panoramic detail. But one thread runs through almost every account, regardless of culture, religion, or age. The person comes back fundamentally altered in their relationship to fear, and when fear leaves, something else rushes in to fill the space. Neville Goddard taught that assumption is the engine of all experience. Whatever you assume to be true, with feeling, hardens into fact. He described the imagination as the creative force of existence itself, your consciousness projecting outward into form. The obstacle standing between most people and their desired reality is a single thing: the emotional static of doubt, anxiety and fear that scrambles the signal before it can take shape. Now consider what happens during a near-death experience. The person separates from the body. They report floating above the surgical table, watching doctors work, hearing conversations from rooms they weren't physically in. And in that moment, they encounter a state of awareness so vast, so saturated with what they describe as unconditional love, that every earthly concern dissolves instantly. The mortgage payment, the argument with their spouse, the career anxiety, all of it becomes laughably small. That feeling stays with them. Kenneth Ring, a psychologist who spent years studying NDE survivors, found consistent patterns in how these people changed. They lost interest in material competition. They became more compassionate, and they developed an unshakable conviction that consciousness continues beyond physical death. When you genuinely know, in your bones, in your cells, that you are eternal, the things that used to terrify you lose their teeth overnight. Fear operates like a filter on your consciousness. Every worried thought, every anxious projection about the future, every memory of past failure, these act as static between you and the state. Neville called living in the end. You want financial abundance, but the knot in your stomach when you check your bank balance keeps broadcasting scarcity. You want a loving relationship, but the ache of past rejection keeps you braced for disappointment. The assumption you hold isn't the one you consciously choose. The assumption running your life is the one your body believes. NDE survivors had that filter ripped away in a single moment. They touched something so real that the fears governing their previous life became transparent, visible as constructions rather than facts. And once you see a construction for what it is, it can never imprison you the same way again. This is why so many of them report what looks like rapid manifestation afterward. They change careers with ease. Relationships transform. Money shows up in unexpected ways. Synchronicities multiply until the word coincidence stops making sense. From the outside, it looks like luck. From the inside, they'll tell you the same thing. They simply stop resisting. Neville would have recognized this immediately. He described the core practice as assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persisting in that assumption until it solidifies into experience. The key word is feeling. Your intellectual understanding that you could be wealthy means almost nothing if your gut clenches every time rent is due. The assumption has to penetrate below thought, into the body, into the automatic reactions that run beneath your conscious awareness. What death gives these people is a somatic reset. The body's fear programming, built up over decades of conditioning, media consumption, parental warnings, social comparison, gets overridden by an experience so overwhelming that the old programs can't survive it. They return to the body with the same brain, the same memories, the same circumstances, but the felt sense of who they are has shifted at the root. You've experienced a milder version of this. Think about a moment when you received genuinely shocking good news. A job offer you didn't expect, a call from someone you'd given up on. In that instant, before your mind could analyze it, your entire body reorganized, shoulders dropped, breathing deepened. The world looked different, colors brighter, edges softer. That reorganization is what NDE survivors live in permanently. The assumption of safety, of being held, of life working in their favor became their default setting. So the question that matters is whether you can get there without the clinical death. Neville said yes, repeatedly and emphatically. He taught that the practice of entering a drowsy, meditative state and vividly imagining your desired outcome, feeling it as present-tense reality, accomplishes the same shift. The difference is pace. A near-death experience does it in minutes. Disciplined imagination does it over weeks and months. The destination is identical. But here's where most people stall. They do the visualization. They try to feel abundant while their rent is late. And when the outside world doesn't change immediately, the old fear comes roaring back. The gap between the practice and the result becomes a breeding ground for doubt. And doubt is just fear wearing a more respectable outfit. The NDE survivor doesn't face this problem because their experience was so viscerally real that no external circumstance can override it. They touch the foundation underneath the world of appearances. Imagine knowing, with the same certainty you know fire is hot, that your consciousness shapes your reality. You wouldn't need discipline to maintain your assumption. The assumption would maintain itself. Your work, then, is to build that certainty through repetition rather than revelation. Every night, as you drift towards sleep, you enter a state neurologically similar to what mystics have described for centuries. Your critical mind relaxes. The border between imagination and reality thins. Neville called this the state akin to sleep, and he insisted it was the most powerful creative window available to you. In that window, you craft a scene, short, vivid, first person, that implies your desire is already fulfilled. You feel the handshake, the weight of the ring, the view from the new apartment. You loop this scene until it generates a genuine emotional response, until your body responds as if it's happening now, until the feeling of the wish fulfilled becomes more real than the room you're lying in. Each time you do this successfully, you're chipping away at the fear filter. Each session, where you genuinely feel the reality of your desired state, weakens the grip of the old assumption. The NDE survivor got a sledgehammer. You're using a chisel. The wall comes down either way. There's a detail from NDE research that Neville's students rarely discuss. Many survivors report that during their experience, they understood, with total clarity, that they had been creating their life all along. Every circumstance, every relationship, every seeming accident was something they had projected from consciousness. This wasn't guilt-inducing. It was liberating. Because if you created the unwanted reality unconsciously, you can create the desired reality on purpose. That recognition is available to you right now. You've been manifesting your entire life. Every fear you nursed into chronic anxiety eventually found its mirror in your circumstances. Every conviction you held about yourself, worthy or unworthy, lucky or cursed, played out with eerie precision. The process was never broken. You were simply operating it with your eyes closed, letting subconscious assumptions run the show while your conscious mind wondered why life felt so hard. The survivors came back with their eyes open. Your version of opening those eyes requires something the NDE survivor received for free: sustained courage. The courage to hold your desired state when evidence contradicts it. The courage to feel wealthy while your account is overdrawn. The courage to assume love when loneliness is loud. This is the inner work that separates those who read about manifestation from those who live it. Neville was blunt about this. He said the world is yourself pushed out. Every face you encounter, every obstacle, every gift is your own consciousness reflected back. When a near-death survivor returns without fear, the world they encounter begins reflecting that fearlessness almost immediately. Doors open, people respond differently, opportunities materialize as if they were always waiting just off stage. The same world is waiting for you, just behind the curtain of your current assumptions. The survivors didn't gain a supernatural power. They lost the one thing that was blocking a power you already have. Fear was the dam. Remove it, and the current that's been building behind it for your entire life floods forward with a force that looks, from the outside, like a miracle. Tonight, when you close your eyes and the room goes quiet, you stand at the edge of the same frontier those survivors crossed. You don't need a stopped heart to get there. You need a still mind, a vivid scene, and the willingness to feel something true before the world confirms it. The people who came back from death will tell you the same thing. Everything you want exists in a state you haven't yet allowed yourself to inhabit. The door between you and that state has been unlocked since the day you were born.